Welcome back to the Triathlon Training Explained show powered by TrainingPeaks. This week, we're going to be taking it easy. Sounds good? Well, sometimes though, it's actually easier to go hard than it is easy. Okay, let me explain this one. If you're going hard, it's hard. That's pretty black and white. If it's hurting, then you probably know you're working at the right level. But when it comes to easy, at the other end of the spectrum, it's not always quite so easy to gauge. So I'm gonna be heading out of the set today to look into how easy should be and find out a bit more about the science behind the recovery session. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of recovery. In order to improve, you need to stress your body through training, but then allow it to recover, as this is when it adapts and gets stronger, which is known as supercompensation. Now, previously, we've already talked about the importance of nutrition and rest when it comes to recovery, but active recovery also comes underneath that umbrella. So there are some sessions that it's actually important in which you go easy, and that includes swimming, cycling, and running. Mental recovery is also an important part of these type of sessions, as it's a chance for you just to switch off, relax and enjoy. You don't need to worry about the pace, the heart rate that you're hitting, obviously as long as it isn't too high. And it's a chance to reflect and just remember why you love doing this sport. Now, admittedly, the run, you are still carrying your body weight, but as long as you're moving forwards, it really doesn't matter how slow you're going. And you've also got the option of obviously cycle and swim when your body weight is supported. So it's just a matter of moving your arms and your legs. It's easy to think of recovery as just purely being rest, so sitting, lying down, basically expending as little energy as possible. But yes, that is important, although we're going to be focusing on the active recovery side of things. So I want to know, why do we actually want to expend energy to help us recover? Well, I'm going to be speaking to expert Chris Bagg to find out.
The purpose of a recovery workout is trying to get you back to where you started, to that unfatigued state or a lesser fatigued state, as soon as possible. There's several different methods for recovery. You can just wait around, so passive recovery. You can get recovered through a variety of other modalities, massage, these kinds of passive but sort of active things that are sort of done to you. And then there's active recovery, which is what we're talking about today. All of the research out there in the actual scientific realm points to the fact that a combination of active recovery and things and like using massage or maybe some of those other products are the best way to get to that non-fatigued state or lesser fatigued state as soon as possible. And by far, if you can only do one, the best thing is active recovery.
Well, these recovery sessions also allow your soft tissue, so your muscles, tendons and ligaments, to have that increased blood flow whilst not being put under too much stress. And it also will help to flush out your legs, so if you've got any byproducts that are still hanging around from a tough session you've done before. And when it comes to tendons, they're notoriously bad for having a poor blood flow. So if you do have any niggles, then these type of sessions can really help promote some healing in those areas. And also, as I've mentioned before, you've got that mental benefit where you get to switch off, but you're still actually adding a little bit of mileage to your legs for your overall weekly program. It's easy to think that you can just drop your recovery session when you're tight for time. But it is still a session, so it's part of your training, and it does need to be seen like that. And you might think, oh, I'm not going to see a direct benefit of fitness right there and then, so why does it matter? But we've already talked about all the benefits you get from it. So when it comes to planning your recovery sessions, you need to look at your overall week. Obviously, it does depend how much time you have, how many sessions you're doing anyway, and how many of those sessions are your key hard ones, because that's what you need the recovery from. So as a rough guide, try and fit in a couple of recovery sessions a week. And remember that with running, you're probably going to have the most amount of muscle and tendon damage, cycling coming next, and then swimming the least. So bear this in mind when you're planning out your week. Well, the bonus of these type of sessions is they're going to be shorter to your normal ones, and they don't really require very much planning, as hitting performance targets really isn't the point of them.
A bike ride, I would say that you can do a recovery session up to 75 minutes in length, but it has to be very, very, very easy. Again, you want to avoid ever hearing yourself breathe. From a power perspective, because I think a lot of your listeners will use power meters. I would say they want to be below 40% of FTP. That is very, very light riding. So for the run, I would say no more than 25 minutes. And the reason for that is, even though the run is more intense than swimming or cycling, the biggest problem with it is that it's load bearing. And so every time you take a step while you're running, you're driving like 4 to 6 times your body weight through your lower body, through your legs, through your joints. And so even a very light run is a more intense experience for your body than a swim or a ride. So for the run, no more than 25 minutes, and it should be like I always tell my athletes, like stupid slow. Like it should be really, 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 really easy. Like if you know what your marathon pace is, like an open marathon pace, like 2 to 3 minutes per mile slower than that. So if you're talking about a half marathon pace, like 2.5 to 3.5 minutes slower than that, like really slow. I've been a professional triathlete. Like my recovery runs are never faster than 9 minutes per mile. For the swim, again, it should be, it's going to probably be pretty short. I would say, around 30 to 40 minutes is going to be pretty light. If for some of you that still sounds like a long swim, and I know that there are people like that out there, just use some toys. Use a pull buoy to get your legs to float. This is a great time to use those neoprene shorts that most of you probably own, that are probably not really a great idea to be using all of the time.
So next time you see a recovery run on your training program, for example, remember those benefits, and why not embrace that challenge of actually just going slowly. Now, as triathletes, we're lucky we've got the choice of 3 sports, but sometimes it's a little bit difficult to know which one to use and when it comes to recovery. And Chris is going to guide us here.
Here's some good rules of thumb. One of them is that the research shows that the best way to recover from a particular kind of workout is that particular movement again. So if you just had a very, very hard bike workout, you're going to be better served by doing a very easy recovery ride. Same thing for the run, same thing for the swim. If you're self-coaching, if you have a very hard bike workout, the next morning, like your first thing that you should be doing is a very easy bike workout. And then you can add one of the other 2 sports for your second workout for that day that doesn't have to be a recovery session. That's later in the day. So maybe it ends up being like 24 to 30 hours after that very difficult bike session, but you had that recovery session that morning that will help that out.
Yes, you're going to be adding to your total distance for your weekly mileage, but it's very much at a low level, low stress on the legs. And as Chris mentioned, there's a significant difference between these recovery miles and those junk miles. And active recovery obviously is needed after your hard session. So if you did a hard session in the morning, you could put a recovery session later that day or even the following day or day after. And we've put together a session that you can do for each of the 3 sports.
25 minutes jog at a very easy conversational pace. You shouldn't feel out of breath. And if you can, ideally do it off-road or on a different surface so you're reducing that impact on your legs, as well as engaging the smaller muscles that maybe do not always fire when you're running on track or asphalt. 60 to 90 minutes spin out with a coffee stop, or 45 minutes on the turbo, both with a few high cadence bursts to spin the legs. So both of these options are again at a conversational pace. Even when you're moving your legs faster, the emphasis is on high cadence and not high resistance. Just purely moving your legs fast and easy will increase the blood flow. So try to pick a fairly flat route if you are heading out. Wrap up warm as you'll be working at a lesser intensity. And it could be the perfect time to take a gravel bike out and ride some flowing trails when speed really isn't a factor. 50 1,500 meters of mixed strokes includes some kick and some fast strokes off the wall. So use this to really mix things up a little. If you do find backstroke or breaststroke relatively easy, then mix these in, as it will help to open up your shoulders and hips and promote more movement and blood flow around these joints that can get restricted when you're training for triathlon. Swimming is great, as being horizontal will help with a venous return in the legs. If you need a pull buoy to help keep it nice and easy, then feel free to use it. I often opt for some easy kit with a kickboard, as this will help remove any byproducts that might be lingering in the larger leg muscles. And as for these fast strokes off the wall, these will just raise your heart rate and increase blood flow without causing any fatigue, and often help you to get out from the session feeling better than when you got in.
The recovery session doesn't need to be limited to the 3 sports of triathlon. Why not think outside the box a little bit and you get a mental break from doing a different sport, as well as just using your body in a slightly different way. For example, in the gym, you could try the cross trainer. It's really light on your legs, but you're using your arms and your legs for that. And if, say, you already do some other sports such as surfing or cross-country skiing, you can also use them to aid your recovery. Now, on the swim, the example I gave you included some fast strokes, but you can also translate this to the bike or the run. For example, doing 10 seconds of hard effort on the bike or 15 seconds on the run will just increase your pace. It'll get your heart rate up, but it also just prevents you from getting in that plodding feeling that you can sometimes get with a really easy session.
Next time someone suggests an easy swim, bike or run, don't see it as wasted time, but embrace it and you'll feel the benefit. It's often the fastest runners that have the slowest easy run. Their spectrum is the biggest from their top end speed to their recovery run. So much so that the likes of you and I could actually keep up on their easy runs. And I'm always struggling to explain to friends how slow I run on my easy runs, and they think they wouldn't be able to keep up. The only problem is I still need to work at the other end a little bit more. But hopefully you have enjoyed this. Hit the thumb up like button if you have. Hit the globe to subscribe to make sure you get all of our videos here at GTN. And if you want to see some other videos from our Triathlon Training Explain, we've got a playlist for that just here. And if you want to see how to recover after a triathlon race, we've got 6 top tips in a video just here.